things are working. Just good to go here. Check, check. Hello, everybody. We're going to get started in a minute here. All right, welcome to a new year for the Hamilton Naturalist Club Bird Studies Group. This is our beginning of our 2025-2026 season. And I'm going to open this up with a little bit about what the club does. And for anybody who's new here, by the way, anybody new here, put your hand up. We'd like to see that. A few new people, that's good. Awesome. So we're going to be going through, my name is Rob, by the way. I didn't even bother saying that. So I'm the director of the Bird Study Group, part of the board, which I'll talk about in a minute here. So a little quick agenda, what we're going to go through here. We'll talk about the Hamilton Naturalist Club and the Bird Study Group. A little bit about the birds we saw over the summer. We're going to present an award today, the Bird of the Year Award for 2024. So it's a nice little plaque. And I'm going to poll everybody beforehand to see if anybody has any guesses, if you don't already know what one. We're going to talk a little bit about bird advocacy and then the upcoming events, and then our guest speaker, George, here. So the Hamilton Naturalist Club is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the study, appreciation, and conservation of our wild plants and animals. Our meetings and field events are open to all people, don't have to have a membership. However, by becoming a member, you're supporting all the things our club does, such as the Wood Duck magazine shown here, Wood Duck Journal, I should say, actually. And you'll be supporting our mission to protect nature in the Hamilton study area. And you might be wondering, what does that mean? Here's a little visual representation. It encompasses basically the cities of Hamilton, Burlington, towns of Milton, Grimsby, and Oakville, the reservation of Six Nations of the Grand River, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Basically, this is kind of a boundary for what we study, and it is centered upon Dundurn Castle, actually, is the center point of this. And it includes lots of different towns and municipalities, as listed here. And these lands have been and are traditional territories of various indigenous peoples, including the Erie peoples, Adirondack, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas. And here's just a visual representation of the treaty agreements within our study area, which include Between the Lakes Treaty, Brant Tract, Head of the Lake Purchase, Adjacents Treaty, Treaties 22 and 23. And these specifically are agreements between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the First Nation, or of the Credit First Nation. And they currently live basically in the bottom corner of the Six Nations, if you know the geography down there. This area is also covered with the Dish of One Spoon Wampum, which is a covenant between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe to share and care for resources around the Great Lakes. The Hamilton Naturalist Club is presently steward of 11 nature sanctuaries, representing over 500 acres of land. This is another thing you'd be supporting as becoming a member of the club. We are protecting land, quite literally. The club and its members conduct numerous bird surveys and participate in bird conservation efforts across the study area. So you'll notice there's one new one this year, the Pine Hill Sanctuary, new in 2025. We encourage our community members to consider what they might be able to do to support all new birders and naturalists in any way possible. We live in an era where the access to nature, where nature is constantly under threat, but the tools available to connect anyone to nature are actually constantly improving. It's much easier to become a naturalist these days on your own. But growing the naturalist and birding communities through personal encouragement and support can help us protect what remains, and in time help us reclaim what has been lost so far. So what else can you do if you're already a member? You can join our board. You can reach out to me or any other board member and show interest in case we have an opening soon. There's habitat restoration efforts that always require more hands. Just ask Jen. I don't think Jen's here tonight, but she can always use someone to pull invasive species, for example. And contact volunteer at hamiltonnature.org if you want to do that. You could write for the Wood Duck, which is our journal. You could lead a field event. You don't even have to be an expert in that. You just have to be able to just round people out, lead them around, it's because you will find some expertise within that group. It's more about just guiding people around and corralling everyone together. You can also join online our Discord server where you can ask any questions or post your sightings and help us build our online presence. There's a link right there. And there's also in there you can ask about the Ontario Bird Alert Discord, which is a separate thing if you're really interested in finding out about rare bird alerts and things like that. Yes?
Will your presentation be made available to the people attending?
Yeah, so this is actually live streaming on YouTube as well. So you can go to youtube.com/@HamiltonNature, I believe. And this presentation will be right there, so you can get it. That's a good point. I forget to put that in the early slides so that you can, yeah, there's a lot here, and sometimes I do forget that, so thank you for pointing that out. And some of our goals as a bird study group, to keep our minds on the birds beyond what we hear and see in the field, to allow broader conversation about bird ecology threats, efforts, and trends and predictions, bring awareness and amplify efforts, initiatives, projects that are having a positive impact, and to bring the average person and the expert birder into the same space. Is anyone here new to birding or consider themselves new to birding in here tonight? There's a couple half hands here, it looks like.
How do you know if you're new?
It's up to you. It's all self-identified. I have a hard time identifying when I started because it's just very confusing, so I can relate completely. So I'm going to get into the birds of the summer, and I'm just going to start off with share a few things I saw over the summer because I actually did a short trip out into Alberta, and I spent a little bit of time going around Ontario. Anybody here recognize this bird? Who knows West Coast birds? Yeah, Bruce?
Mountain bluebird?
Mountain bluebird, yeah. It's a male mountain bluebird out in Alberta. This was at the Horseshoe Canyon in the Badlands, not too far from Drumheller in Alberta. And there were a bunch of other birds, as you can see here. I'm not going to go through and identify them all, but I got a lot of good grassland birds. It was really fun. I got this in the HSA the other, I think early August was this one, where I got the lesser and greater yellowlegs walking next to each other. Great little comparison shot. And this was up in Sudbury where I got to see, this is literally half the size of a usual blue-headed vireo because this was a fledgling that just hopped out of the nest. So imagine the size of a blue-headed vireo. This is about half the size. It's hard to tell from the photo, but. And I also did a bit of the Ontario Breeding Bird Atlas and came across sites like this where you could just see all these turkey vultures lined up in the fence posts. So that was pretty fun. But a lot of you are out there birding as well too, and I like to sometimes throw into these slides like a bird of the month kind of thing, but because it's been several months since we had a meeting, I decided to have a best bird of the summer instead. Anybody got any candidates for that they can think of? Yeah.
The spotted redshank.
I think he wins.
Cambridge.
That's HSA, right?
Is it HSA? Okay, I didn't know that.
That was in the HSA.
I didn't know that was HSA.
We went out and saw it, Rob and I went to see it, and then just thinking about the study area, it's like, I think this thing is in the circle.
I will have to check that then, because that's not in my notes.
I think it is.
Thank you.
I think it would be like probably the common term they nest like basically scatter all around like a windy mirror only basically.
That's a good one, yeah. So common terns nesting. Anyone else? Yeah.
The last thing I would say, Rob, is that if that bird is in the circle, which I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I think we've already figured out what next year is.
Yeah, I think we have to.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's good. So yeah, I don't have spotted redshank in my thing, but that's a good point that was, yeah, I didn't know that was in the circle.
Nathan Hood,
Yeah,
right near his house,
right near his house.
and a
Wow.
new stormwater pond.
What's the, what was the name of that area that it was in? Is there a name for that?
I think they've called it the Red Shank Pond.
Oh, it's just the redshank pond. Okay.
But other stuff showed up there too.
Yeah.
It's turned out to be a great shorebird.
Yeah. So that is a bird from Europe, as I
On
understand.
the west side of Cambridge, just barely into Cambridge.
Yeah.
Just off Highway 8.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's-
And like I said, just doing the old mental circle in my head.
Yeah.
This thing has to be in the circle.
I hadn't considered it, but that is a good point. Now I got to look that up because maybe I'll have to put something in next week as a, any other candidates? Because this is just me making something up kind of, but
Least bidder in,
least bidder.
Grimsby wetland.
That's another good one. And there was one at the Safari Road as well too, I believe.
Well, that's old.
That's old news though, okay, all right.
The Whitborough?
Wimborell. Geez, you guys are getting coming up with all kinds of things that I didn't. Now, Wimborell and least, is
That
the least
Wimber's still there.
Yeah, the Wimborell is in my presentations, but it's not the bird of the summer I listed, but
I wonder if that bird's figured out how to play cricket by now.
yeah. The cricket field,
It's eating grubs in the grass.
yeah,
That's why it won't leave.
interesting. All right, so what I had after looking at a whole bunch of things, I might be biased because I'm someone who does bird song recording, so I might be biased towards songbirds, but I did put in the prothonotary warbler
Ah, yes.
because it was actually trying to breed at Safari Marsh. It was there for months, I believe, at least over a month. I think the date was. And a lot of photos were taken of that, and I am going to go in a little bit later about a little more about its importance. But there are a lot of other birds as well too, and I'm not going to read them all out because there's 2 pages of these, but maybe I'll just highlight a couple here. Summer tanager, there were actually 2 of them at one point at 2 competing cemeteries. I don't know why that happened. Summer tanager doesn't show up that often, let alone 2 of them. The white-eyed vireo is usually around every year. American avocet was an interesting one. Showed up at a couple places. Mississippi kite I thought was interesting because it was just briefly, but flying over Shell Park. Obviously the prothonotary warbler. American white pelican, they were just doing the tour of the city, I seem to recall. They were being sighted in one area, then another area, then another area. You could kind of just track where they were going from the reports, which is kind of fun because they're a huge bird, and there were several of them, so you can actually kind of track everybody's reports. Little gull and Franklin's gull were together. Neotropic cormorant, Wimborell, as mentioned earlier. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up that redshank if it was in, because it didn't show up in the Discord HSA thing, which is why I didn't.
Yeah, Waterloo region.
Yeah, because it's in the Waterloo region one, which I forgot to check there. I checked all the other ones. Glossy ibis in Coots Paradise was another really good one too. And the usual Jaggers, there was an olive-sided flycatcher right at the edge of the HSA near Cambridge as well too. And various golden wing warblers. So there's been lots of interesting rare birds seen in the last few months. But we're also going to talk about something from 2024 now. Now I'm going to ask the audience, who here who doesn't already know the answer to this has a guess as to what the bird of the year 2024 was? And the bird of the year, for those who don't know, is given annually by the Bird Study Group. A rare or unusual bird is chosen. The award is given to the first person or people to see that bird. Oh, and was there a hand up? Sorry. Thought I saw a hand up. No guesses from last year? No guesses? Memories have gone so quickly. I know mine kind of went when I saw this and I went, oh, right. I took many photos of this. And this is going to Kathy Johnson for seeing the cinnamon teal at Grimsby Wetlands. And this bird made the news, it made the media. Here's the CBC article. Here's something on YouTube Shorts made by the Weather Network. There's another YouTuber who made a whole video about seeing this bird. It was the first ever seen cinnamon teal in the Niagara region ever. It brought hundreds of birders, and I've heard actually that the people across the street said they estimated maybe about 1,000 birders out to the Grimsby wetlands to see this rare duck from New York, from the rest of Ontario, from all kinds of places.
It's probably probably on its way south, basically,
Yep.
during migration.
Yeah, and this is kind of south, but it's a West Coast bird is the issue, so. Third ever record for the Hamilton study area. Previously seen at Rattray Marsh for 8 days in 1995. And at South Shell Park briefly, I don't even know how long, I know it was
a
one
pair.
day. It was a pair that day,
Male and
okay.
female.
I've missed that detail. In 2019, there was only a few people who saw it. though.
Mark Jennings on that bird.
Yeah.
Those birds.
And on eBird, there's 514 photos of this bird alone on there. And so I'd like to invite Kathy to come up and. Do you want to take a photo? Take this off. Oops. Yeah. So is it? Yeah. Just watch your feet here.
Hold on, Rob.
Do you want to get a photo too there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You want to come up?
Very brief.
All right. We'll get Kathy to talk to us a little bit about this bird she found.
Just a quick note. I tell my grandchildren I think birding is 80% luck, and I really think it was just luck. I go to the wetlands regularly, take my grandchildren there, went looking for the gallinules, came up over the edge of the pond there very quietly and looked down and saw, oh, pretty mallard, nice lighting, take a couple of quick shots, literally 2. Went home, pulled it up on the computer and went, it's got red eyes. That can't be right. Little checking, and then I thought, oh, it can't be a cinnamon teal. It's not the right area of Canada. That can't be. So put it up on Ontario Birds just for confirmation. And within 5 minutes, confirmed. Where did you find it? I'm on the phone to my girlfriend at the time, and I said, Wendy, they've just confirmed it. She said, I'm getting in the car. She hung up on me. So the excitement over it, I think, I just found as a huge pleasant surprise. He wasn't aware that Grimsby newspaper got a hold of the idea just a few months back and actually put it in their quarterly magazine. And when I went to pick it up, my picture was the entire front cover. So I'm a published photographer. But thank you so much for this honor. I mean, it really has just been a tremendous, pleasant surprise all around since finding it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing.
We'll talk after. We'll figure that
Well, I know, I was away. So
out. Okay.
So you don't think like a mallard could probably mistake it for a mate? Basically, it looks like a mallard.
No. We yeah. We got the
They do
experts.
hybridize with
They do
birds,
hybridize,
though. It's
but
true.
yeah. All right. So, a little bit from the bird advocacy side of what we do. Got a little thing here from Barry Coombs. You might have seen these when you were coming in at the table next to the Bird of the Year plaque. Very neat brochures. And this is for FLAP Canada, so the Fatal Light Awareness Program. Their work has a direct impact on the development of bird-friendly building standards and the Lights Out program in numerous North American cities. So this is the program to basically try to lessen the impact of birds running into windows, because that's something that is a common issue with them. FLAP receives frequent requests for information and technical assistance from around the world. Our organization has a small and hardworking staff working out of a tiny office in Toronto, as well as a slate of dedicated, committed volunteers. FLAP board is very active and engaged. Up to 1 billion birds die from collisions with glass every year in North America. So please help FLAP by continuing to reduce the threat through advocacy, outreach, and education. Your contribution helps to ensure children and grandchildren will continue to enjoy birds as you do and benefit from the key role in biodiversity in a healthy climate. And if you want to look up more later, you just go to flap.org, which is the website. Yep.
You hold up the brochure again, Rob? Please.
Oh, brochure, yes. Barry wants a picture.
For the website. Facebook. Thank you.
I can't believe you can get it from that far back. All right. So another bird advocacy thing, and I talked a bit earlier how I might tie the prothonotary warbler into something kind of important here, and that is the Safari Road marsh. How many people here are not familiar with Safari Road
The
marsh?
African lion safari.
Yeah, but the marsh specifically, yeah, you're unaware? Okay. So this is a road that's been closed for several years now. And I'm just going to show you kind of where this is on the HSA. So we got there, and if you zoom in, there's African Lion Safari for reference. And it's this little section right here. And you'll notice even in the satellite view, it is flooded. And it's been closed for several years now. And nearby is the Hyde Tract, which is another spot that people do go birding at. So a section of Safari Road between Valens Road and Kirkwall Road have been intermittently closed for the last 5 years. I think pretty much closed constantly for the last at least 3 due to flooding. It passes through a provincially significant wetland, and when the road was open, there was frequent roadkill. Birders still went there, but it was really difficult as a birder because that road was pretty narrow, very dangerous to be birding from, but a lot of great birds in there, which is a huge conflict there in its own. The agency believes in keeping Safari Road permanently closed, and that would help establish an important wildlife corridor for species at risk and and keep the provincially significant wetland intact and save money because it would avoid the cost of repairing that and retrofitting it and keeping the maintenance and so on. Just a little bit from eBird. It has been a pretty popular place now that it's been closed for a few years because people can just down there and park and they feel safe. They're not going to get hit by a car or truck and they can go birding in there. And you notice there's now 172 species that have been found in there, and that has gone up by about 70 species since it's been closed, I believe, from what I looked up. And here's a few of the photos off of eBird of the birds seen in there. But the city's consultants right now are currently recommending to rebuild the road. There is currently a public feedback thing at this web address here. Basically, they're in kind of a consultation phase and they're looking for comments before September 30th. So I'd like you all to consider maybe get a picture of this or look it up on the, look it up. If you just Google like Safari Road closed, it's the first thing that comes up. And you can write a comment in there and those comments become public. I don't think your information becomes public, but what you write becomes public on there. And I think there was currently like 40 or so comments when I checked this morning, so. Yes, Bruce.
Rob, is it known whether the road has sunk or the water levels in the area have risen?
I don't know. There are some reports in there, and there was an article a year ago or so that was theorizing that a local resident had been dumping fill so much that it had started raising the water level elsewhere.
Should we give them an award?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of ironic because that's kind of environmentally destructive, but it seems to have helped in this case in a way. But yes.
I was going to say, Rob, in fact, Bruce led right into what I was going to comment on.
Yeah.
That I have to confess to being there a number of times over the last 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And the problems with the flooding have obviously gotten much worse in the last few. And I was wondering exactly the same thing.
Yeah, why is it going up?
Or somebody's done something to upset the water.
Yeah.
Well, I heard it was also beavers.
Oh, could be that too.
Beavers have done something to
Yeah.
make the water pool more, and they haven't removed them.
You can't fight beavers, I know that
Well,
too.
you can try, they tried.
Try. So that's a bit of an update on that, and I wanted to make sure that made it into this meeting because September 30th is coming up soon. And hey, I had a relevant bird to show you. That was really interesting because the prothonotary warbler, those of you who know that species know that it's not really been breeding in the HSA regularly for quite some time. So a male to show up on territory for weeks on end at a spot where we're trying to, make sure we don't develop anymore. It was just kind of really great timing. So kudos to everyone who documented that bird really well. Yes?
Just curious, who owns that land currently?
Well, the road is city property, but it's all otherwise, I believe, private land. But it is environmentally significant, and I think it has conservation easements and all that on it, so it's not like it can be developed on. But yeah, part of the proposal for remedying the road does involve kind of I think doing some management of the water, so probably building some kind of creek artificially or something like that to go through there. So, but I'm not an expert on it, so that's why I would say, check the site and read through their presentation and ask the kind of questions I was asking, such as they had a weird conclusion that basically said that they thought rebuilding the road was the cheapest thing to do, because they randomly said that closing the road requires them to buy properties, and that would be expensive, and they didn't indicate why they would have to buy properties at all. So
Possible pressure from the African lion safari.
I wouldn't say so, because that isn't near there, but
That's a main traffic corridor for them.
yeah, it would be. But the thing is that nobody's really complained about the traffic rerouting around this, and that's one of the weird things is like, it's supposed to be this major road, but nobody's really complaining that it's closed at all. Yeah. So I want to be cognizant of time here. I just want to get to a couple of the upcoming birding outings. Barry Coombs, who's the back there, is leading one at Bayfront Park on October 8th, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. So nice kind of earlier in the night, Wednesday night walk. Leading attendees through the beautiful waterfront park while pointing out many bird species that make use of the park's greenery and Hamilton Harbor's sheltered waters. New and experienced birders will enjoy this guidance and commentary. Please dress for the weather. And we have an upcoming out, and there's Bruce here too for Bruce and Lori are leading an outing at Grimsby Wetlands, which hosted our cinnamon teal that we mentioned earlier. And this is on October 15th at 5 p.m. to 6:30. So this is an award-winning wetland project of the Naturalist Club, and it's a former sewage lagoon in the west end of Grimsby. You can join them in this tour of this 29-acre property. They'll share the story of the efforts that went into conserving this parcel of land on the south shore of Lake Ontario. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I'm hoping to make it out for it. And thank you for the refreshments, by the way. Dina and Ellen weren't able to make it tonight. One of them dropped off the food. Both of them had a cold or something like that, and they were like, we don't want to spread our germs or anything like that. So they dropped off the food, and Anne took care of the table tonight. So thank you for that. Upcoming meeting, the next general meeting, because for those who don't know the club, there are 2 meetings per month. There's the general Naturalist Club meeting, and there's the bird study group meeting. So the next general meeting is actually our annual general meeting. And it's going to be Kaja Grunzinski from HCA's Natural Areas Inventory. She's going to provide a brief update, and then the HNC staff are going to do summaries of our projects. So it'll be several presentations about what we're doing and what the NAI is doing in the last year or so. It's become kind of an annual thing for our annual general meeting to kind of just use it as a time to share what the club is doing. So welcome you to all come to that. Next month's speaker for the bird study group will be author Steve Burrows, author of the Birder Murder Mysteries. He is going to do a presentation called Travels and Travails, Researching and Writing the Birder Murder Mysteries. And so it'll be a little lighthearted look through his path from birder and environmental journalist to author of this best-selling murder mystery series. And that will be Monday, October 27th. It's a little late because Thanksgiving pushes us quite close to the end of the month, right here. And tonight's speaker, we got George here. Oops, what just happened? There we go, all right. George is going to be talking about Hawk Cliff Raptor banders for 50 years and counting. Celebration of 50 years of continuous fall raptor banding operations at Hawk Cliff, Ontario. So I'm not going to get too deeply into it, and we're going to take a second here to set up so make sure our live stream can see him, and we can get his presentation on the screen here. So just wait a minute for us to get all the technical things going here, but welcome to George for presenting today. Do that. So that should take a second to come up there. And I am going to... Is that coming up yet? I may have to unplug it. Oh, there it is. I need to plug that in.
Yeah, there you go.
Missing a plug. Thing kind of needs power to work. There we go. So that's working there.
There it is.
And then I am going to switch the mic.
It's 1969. I myself have been part of that group since 1995, so almost half of their time. And I took it upon myself for their 50th anniversary, before too many of our older members disappear, pass away, move, to get a lot of the old photos, some of which are starting to deteriorate. They're on slides, and they're starting to deteriorate because there is quite a history here. And in fact, this group here in Hamilton has been a big contributor over the years to this crowd. I'm going to show you some photos of folks who have been part of that group. So what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk a little bit about raptor migration and geography and why Hawk Cliff is kind of a special place in the fall. We're going to talk about the group itself briefly. We're going to talk about how we catch and band raptors, so a little bit about the techniques, the tools we use. We're going to talk about the regulars that we catch every year, and some statistics over 50 years, patterns, some of which aren't good news, but it is what it is. There are a bunch of things we've caught over the years, I call them the odd fellows, that have shown up. We've got some photos of those. And the value of hawk banding, what exactly is it? So, when? Well, it's basically now. Starting in August, September, sharp shins, kestrels, merlins, harriers start coming through. October, November, we start with redtails, Cooper's hawks, peregrines, and more harriers. We stay open, some of us, right through to the end of the year. A lot of us are waiting for that very first snowfall, when the ground is completely covered, because within a day or two of that, there's usually a huge movement of harriers, but also some of the falcons as well. If they're still kicking around, they decide they gotta leave. So everybody wants to wait for that. The where, and this is a small map of, shows the hawk watch sites in Ontario. Hawk Cliff is right there, down on the north shore of Lake Erie, just east of Port Stanley, Ontario. It's also the highest point along Lake Erie. So there's another reason. And there's been people watching hawks here since the 1920s. Now back then, the competition was who could shoot the most. Now we've migrated to just who can count the most, okay? But it's been a hawk watch place for a long time. And there's a small dot there around Port Stanley, between Port Stanley and Port Bruce. And it's also important because as we get winds from the north, we get birds from northern Ontario, from northern Quebec, they get pushed down to the Great Lakes, they hit the lakes, and they don't want to fly. Hawks generally do not want to fly over water. So then they turn and they go down the north shore of Lake Ontario, and there are some hawk watches in Toronto, Cranberry Marsh east of Toronto, and then they skirt down to Lake Erie. Now, if we get northwest winds, they get pushed down to those north shores. But in the last few years in particular, we haven't had as much north and northwest wind as we used to get in the fall. And when we get east wind and south wind, a lot of birds are getting pushed up actually to the south shore of Lake Huron. And although I don't think there's too many formal hawk watches, there maybe should be, because I suspect there's actually getting quite a flow of birds. This year already, there's been some decent broadwing flights, so the winds have been enough to push them down to the north shores of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, but we'll see if it holds. So the best days are on moderates to strong north and northwest winds. That's what we want. We can do things in September and early October on a southwest wind. The wind that doesn't work at all for banding is east. The reason for that is if the birds are coming, it's a tailwind for them, and hawks generally will not hunt with a tailwind. They want a headwind so they can control where they're going, and if they get an east wind, it pushes them higher. You'll see them. It's very frustrating, actually. You'll see them, but they will not come down, and once they get height, they hate to give it up, even if they're really hungry. You'll still see birds, but you will have to have really good binoculars because sometimes they can get so high they're up in the clouds And you actually see them going in and out of the clouds. Light winds over the morning generally causes raptors to gain altitude, so we want strong winds because that keeps them lower. If they find a thermal somewhere, they ride that thermal up and then they glide as far as they can. So sometimes they get to enormous heights again if the winds are too light. And that wind direction and speed, it becomes more important as this season progresses. And certainly into November, it's very important because the bigger hawks come later and they really do depend on the right winds. So this is results of what has been seen at Hawk Cliff, and there are counting groups at Hawk Cliff as well, the Hawk Cliff Foundation. In 2007, they saw over 100,000 birds for the season, obviously the biggest number being broadwings, but then sharpshins and then redtails. We caught about 2,200 that year of that 100,000 that went through. And obviously, we are not catching, with broadwings are quite rare, they usually don't come to lures. We do, this group though is famous for catching kestrels, sharpshins, harriers, and redtails. But we do catch a smattering of a whole bunch of other things. And again, in 2018, though, just to show you how variable it is, in 2018, the Hawkwatch people only saw about 28,000 birds. So that, it can vary a lot depending if we don't, that year they only got 5,800 broadwings. I mean, that's a very disappointing number of broadwings. What did we catch? We only caught 1,300 of that. So we are catching much smaller percentages. We need certain things to go right. The Hawkwatch people see things, but we don't always catch them. Now, in North America right now, and this may have been changed a little bit in the last couple of years, there's 26 registered sites with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Only 2 of them are in Canada. One is Hawk Cliff, the other one is Holiday Beach, down by Amherstburg. They also have a licensed banding operation. In 2007, Hawk Cliff had the second highest number of total birds banded anywhere in North America. The group that we can't beat is Cape May. Cape May, New Jersey is where hawk banding started. They've been banding even longer than Hawk Cliff, but they're the group that inspired this crowd to try and do something. There are, as I said, other major sites. Cape May, New Jersey, the Golden Gate in California is another major hawk banding place. Hawk Ridge in Minnesota is another major place. The Goshoot Mountains in Nevada, and of course Holiday Beach is also relatively high numbers, the same reason Hawk Cliff is. In 2018, Hawk Cliff was the 4th highest in North America, but they got record numbers of kestrels and the 2nd highest numbers of sharpshins, redtails, and northern harriers. So because we catch so many of these species, we also attract a lot of graduate students who would love to do this, but to catch the number of birds they need for their studies, we make it a whole lot easier for them. So we've worked with graduate students from all over the world, but particularly the University of Minnesota, McGill, University of Toronto, and Cornell. The strangest study I've been part of is a lady who didn't really want to study the birds. She wanted to study the parasites on the birds. So when we captured certain birds, she got them, put this, it almost looked like a hairnet on them, some things on their feet, like stockings. She sprayed them with this spray that caused the parasites to be stunned or die, and then she collected them all in this giant piece of screen below the birds. And she combed the birds with this little comb to comb all the parasites she could get, and then she separated them and counted them. Now there's flat flies, but there was a whole bunch of other things I never even knew were on these birds. But she was studying parasites, and she got all of the data she needed in one season for her PhD. So yeah, she was pretty happy. And again, you can see the other sites are catching sometimes as many as 3,000 birds, and they catch sometimes different things than we do. So let's talk a little bit about the group. It was founded by Marshall Field, and he's the guy that got me started. Here he is with Golden Eagle. It was also supported by a whole bunch of others. Some of these folks are still alive. Bob and Gary Hubert are both still alive. Don Fowler, Marshall, and Bill Kellett, they've all unfortunately passed away. Our president is the guy with our current president is the guy with the camouflaged hat on, that's Cyril Crocker. So it was started in 1969 with some grants from the Point Pelee Bird Observatory and the Federation of Ontario Naturalists. Since then, it's been pretty much self-sustaining. It started with a single hut. We are now up to 6 huts. I look after one of them. They designed and built everything they used with the exception of the mist nets. They bought those. But the bow traps, everything else we used was all built by these folks themselves. It helped that one of our members, Bob Hubert, was an engineer, and he also knew how to wind springs, which you need to have a bow trap work in the right way, and he knew how to do that. Most of our stations are within about 750 meters of Lake Erie, so right at the lake bank. If you know where the Ontario Clean Water Agency is, down on the Dexter line, we are behind them. We're in their property. There's one hut that is on a farmer's piece of property, and I'm that hut that's 2 kilometers inland. That hut was built in 1988 by Bruce Duncan and Janet Snaith and Marsh Fields, because they felt there was too many birds they were seeing inland that they were missing. And the truth is, there are birds that do fly inland. Right now, to make this whole thing work, there's over 20 licensed sub-permittees under the Hawk Cliff Raptor Banding Association Master Permit, which is given to us by the federal government. And we also have permits from the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources as well. So here they are building that first hut way back in the day. These folks are amazing scroungers. They didn't want to pay for anything. They got as much stuff as they could. They begged, borrowed, and stole stuff from all over. Here they're building the main bird pen that we use to keep our lure birds. This is actually the first bow trap that they built. They got a set of plans from the guys at Cape May, but they had to play with it to make it work. They also discovered, of course, they freeze in the snow, so they had to learn how to prop them up so that the snow didn't, ice them to the ground. But they learned how to build all this stuff all by themselves. Now you can buy some of these things, but because there's falconers who want this kind of equipment, but they had to build everything on their own. So between 1969 to 2018, they banded almost 107,000 raptors. And you can see, the vast majority, more than half, are sharpshins. But then the next thing is American kestrels, quite a lot. And they discovered there is quite a flow of American kestrels, especially along the lake. But we also ban red tails, northern harriers, Cooper's hawks. We do ban a few golden eagles. Golden eagles, we see a lot of them, but a lot of them are very smart. And no, pigeon on a string is not something that looks like I'm going to come to, but they do look occasionally. Goshawks, we do ban some. Now they don't come every year in great numbers. Some years we have eruption years and we catch more. We do catch a few red shoulders, a lot of young ones. A very few broadwings, and if you do catch them, it has to usually be first thing in the morning because they're not that interested in birds as prey, but some of the young ones will go at anything. We do catch a few roughlegs. We have caught 3 Swainson's hawks. I'm proud to say I caught one of them. I'll show you some photos of him. They were all young birds. None of them were adults. They were all immatures. Some merlins. We are catching more merlins now than we used to. I'll show you the numbers in a bit. We do also do special stuff with peregrine falcons, and their numbers are also increasing. We have also only banded 1 gyrfalcon. 1973, it was a white-faced bird. I do not have a photo of it. There is a photo in the Birds of Elgin County book. I'll show you the bander who did it. We used to do northern saw-whet owls, just like they do at Long Point, but guys are getting older, they didn't want to stay up all night anymore, so we don't do that anymore. We do have occasionally some owls that do show up by accident. We have caught a couple snowies, and they also caught a barn owl in 1973. Just showed up and went right into the mist net. We will ban northern shrikes. We do have permits to be able to ban northern shrikes. We do not ban any other small birds. So you look at that graph over 50 years, you can see that unfortunately it's not a great trend. And over 50 years we've on average banded about 2,000 birds. In the last 10 years we're down to only about 1,200. And we're long past any of the high counts. So clearly there are less birds. I will say though that the prevailing winds changing have also made these numbers go down. It's not just about the population of birds. Yeah.
Is the effort to catch them being constant?
Well, we do look at birds. There's all sorts of stats about birds per hour. The stations are open that we track by station. I didn't put that in here because that's maybe not the most interesting stuff. But we do look at it. That number has also gone way down. There was a time where we were catching more than 1 bird per hour that we were open. Now we're down to a half to a third of a bird per hour that stations are open.
My question was, are you putting in the same effort?
I would say we're probably putting in more hours to catch a lot less birds.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's not everybody's cup of tea, looking at a lot of blue sky and absolutely nothing in the nets. So that is a bit of a challenge too. So you can see the percentages here. We do catch most of the top 4 species. We catch is most, but we often have grad students who want some of these other species, harriers, merlins, and goshawks as well. Yeah.
I noticed on all the slides it said from like some date to 2018. Is there more recent data?
There is some more recent data. I have not included it. I will tell you, it's all bad news. Like, it only makes that graph go off, tail off worse.
Like the pandemic probably meant they could go
Well-
birding, basically.
Well, but we were out there during the pandemic because we were all by ourselves, so nobody cared if we were there or not. I think the only other thing is, bird flu has had an impact on some of these species as well. Certainly West Nile virus also took a notch out of some of these species, and we had a lot of people doing blood sampling looking for how infected these birds are with West Nile. Most of the ones we're catching now have it, but they've developed resistance to it, but they're carriers of it. So here's Marshall taking something out of a bow net. I'll explain what that is in a bit. And there he is back in 1969, good-looking guy in the first hut. Now Bob's still with us. Bob's 95 now. he finally retired at 94, but there he is catching a young bald eagle, and there he is with a young goshawk in 2018. John Lemon's also a founding member. He lives up now in Lively near Sudbury. He's also still active, though he's in his late 80s now as well. There he is in 1969 in the original banding station. Don and Sheila Fowler, 2 other founding members. They unfortunately have both passed away. They lived in St. Thomas. It's Gary Hubert with a young bald eagle. I have a lot of pictures of young bald eagles only because it was really worth taking a picture. We don't catch that many bald eagles. Most of the ones we catch are young ones, and almost all of them are sick. Something's wrong with them, and they'll come and hit anything. Almost all these birds were then transported to rehab. Some recovered, but some were not. A lot of them died from lead poisoning. Probably eating dead stuff like ducks or something that had lead shot in them, and so a lot of them had lead or mercury poisoning. Here's Howard McCarthy, another founding member with John Lemon, 1976. You can see they used hay bales to try to disguise. We've tried all sorts of things to disguise the huts. We've learned that doesn't make any difference. As long as you're not out there waving your hands and sort of making a big spectacle, the birds don't care. I've had birds shoot right over my shoulder looking after the lure bird, and they don't even care that I'm standing there. So, but they tried all sorts of things in the past. That's why I put that slide in. There's Dave Lemon, that's John's nephew. This is Craig Brown. This is the guy that also caught the gyrfalcon. He's a professional falconer. He lives just west of St. Thomas. This is the first golden eagle they caught in 1972. They were pretty happy about that. That's Howard McCarthy and Sheila Fowler. There's John Lemon with a couple peregrines with Doug Terry from St. Thomas. And here's good pictures of Bruce Duncan and Janet Snaith, both original, they're members here of the Hamilton Club. Bruce, very, very active for many years before they got married. They got married at Hawk Cliff. I should have pictures of that. They actually got married at the banding hut that I'm at now. And Janet still does come out on occasion with us. We always appreciate seeing her. There's Bob and Don in 1995, taking a picture of a peregrine. There's a light-colored red-shouldered hawk, very light actually that bird was, in 1999. Howard McCarthy with a goshawk. Lawrence Sanders was a bander for almost 50 years as well. And here's young Cyril Crocker, well, again, one of his first golden eagles. I forget the date on this picture, but he's the current president of our club. Russ Chandler just retired. But he's still active on the Hawk Cliff weekends, which are this next weekend actually. Hopefully we get decent weather. That's Charlie Fowler, that's Don and Sheila's nephew. He's an active bander, retired, and now full-time, pretty much out of Hawk Cliff. Here's another Hamilton Nature Club member, Bill Reed. I band with him up at Station 7. Al Hurst, another retired fella. So there's a common theme here. A lot of retired people like doing this. You don't have to be retired to do it. I'm not retired yet myself. Here we are, a bunch of folks, including Eric Michel. It's one of the few pictures I have of him. He banded for many, many years with us. Jim Azawa, a retired United Church minister from London. He just retired. Jesse Pakala was a young guy who's gone on to become a biologist, professional biologist. He was with an adult goshawk in 2004. This is a lady who apprenticed with me, and now she's running a station on her own, Rose Braxton. She runs the station right at the lake bank, so catches a lot of harriers, but also a good station for peregrines. And her boyfriend, Mike Hodgson, works with her. There's another guy that's apprenticed with me, Ryan Lays. He's now working on his PhD at the University of Waterloo in ornithology, but he's still banding with me up at Station 7. Rob Butler took over Bob Hubert's station just recently, and his friend Tim Morphy and his son are there helping as well. So those are, and then there's myself and my other guy who works with me, Dave Van Cedar, at Station 7. I guess my point of putting this in, it takes a lot of people to make all this work. And to keep the stations open, to do all the maintenance, to find all the lure birds, and to make everything run, including all the record keeping, which is considerable, takes a lot of people. This is a typical picture though of a banding station. There's usually a hide, a place you sit in, and then you have lines that go out that run a series of lure birds. We do use live lures. This is all by permit. We use pigeons, starlings, cowbirds, and house sparrows. Different birds for different things. The goal is not to kill the lure birds or to hurt them, but if you use the right kind of nets, you don't have to lose anything necessarily. But these birds of prey, they kill for a living. That's what they're good at. They will not come in unless there's something to give them a reason. We've tried all sorts of artificial things. The hawk's probably laughing. I'm not going anywhere near that rubber thing. It doesn't make any sense. We've tried chickens, we've tried quail, we've tried all sorts of things. Those birds that I just mentioned, which are all non-native to Canada, US, they work the best. This is my station, Station 7. This is the one that Bruce and Janet helped build. And you can see we have these poles. Those poles, we run the lines through, and when we pull them from the hut, it makes the lure bird fly up and then land. And the hawks think, oh, there's something wrong with it, and therefore the movement attracts them, even from great distances. And you can see there's walls of nets around, and then there's traps. You can see those traps on the ground. Those are bow nets. Bow nets are like circles of steel with a hinge in the middle, netting over it. They're pulled back, and there's triggers that are run by foot pedals from inside the hut. So we have bow traps over the lure birds. We have walls of mist nets in front of them and around them. And hopefully through all that we catch something, sometimes. So how do we catch them? Well, for some people at the lake, it starts early in the morning. One of the reasons I like the station I'm in, it doesn't usually start till about 10 o'clock, so you don't have to get up quite so early. You are in hide. It has either one-way glass or something like, something that the birds can't necessarily see us. People tried planting trees. Again, it didn't make any difference, really, but we thought it did. And you can see, though, we're running cords out of the hut through those insulators on the ground. We recycle all those insulators. If you have any old insulators you don't know what to do with, I will gladly find the home for them. They're getting harder to find. But we do that, and then we run them to those poles so that the birds, we can control the lure birds, bring them in, move them out. We can make them go up. We can make them look like they're injured. Okay? And it involves a lot of watching, sitting on stools, sitting on chairs. This is the view from my hut. I have huge fields and pastures in front of me, but there's woodlots, and the birds often start over these woodlots, and we will start using a pigeon to get their attention, even from a few miles away. And it often, they do see it. And then you can see them set their wings, and in they come. And again, this shows you the traps and the walls of mist nets that are on poles. Another example of a mist net fluttering. It has giant bags of netting. The hawks fly in. Hopefully they hit it hard enough that they get bagged, and then we can get them, they get caught. Sometimes those bags also act like slingshots. If they hit it too hard, they bounce out. So things do bounce out of mist nets. And you can see here, this is where they get tangled. And then we have to find a way, we have to find where they went in, find the tail, and you start taking the mist nets back until you get them out. Usually they come out pretty easily. Once in a while they get tangled. Not my favorite thing is to take kestrels out of nets. Kestrels kill by biting. They will also bite you. So they are the worst biters. The rest of these hawks, once you get control of their feet, usually they don't do a whole lot else. But the falcons do bite. So you got to keep control, and usually you get your head between your fingers so they can't reach and bite you. But I don't know if you can't see this, but I've got quite a nasty scar here between my thumb and my finger. I didn't get a hold of a Merlin, and he just reached over and he just ripped the skin right off. For a second, I could see my bone, and then I saw a lot of blood. So what I would say about all these birds is you have to treat them with respect, you have to be careful, but handling them is not, that's the only time a Merlin's ever got a hold of me. The one time I wasn't really paying attention, and he got me. But once you get control of the feet, it's usually not a problem. We also catch them in bow nets. So here's a sharp shin in a bow net. He's not getting out. Once that goes off, and if they're in the net, they really can't get out. Here's a red tail in a bow net. You know, obviously you do have to be careful for those feet. And they will try and grab you. Even through the netting, they'll try and grab you. Once you reach underneath, grab the feet, and then you pull them out. And here's a good picture of Bruce Duncan getting those feet and then pulling them out. We also do use Belchatry traps, which are basically cages with a whole bunch of nooses tied to them. And then you put a sparrow or a mouse inside that trap, and then the birds come down and they try to get the prey animal or bird, and they get caught in these nooses. I find them only to work a little bit. They work better in the wintertime when the birds are a lot hungrier. And they can be a pain to get out. Bigger birds also tend to just tramp on top of the nooses. They don't get caught. But Belchatry traps have been used hundreds of years by falconers. Once we catch them, we put them into any size of cans. Here they've got old Pringles cans, we've got old whiskey cans, we've got old apple juice cans, and then for the golden eagle, we have that concrete forming tube, that big thing in the middle there, because we couldn't find any cans that were big enough to fit them in. The reason we use cans is that if we're catching a lot, we put them in these cans. The birds are, first of all, have never experienced anything like that. They can't hurt themselves, they can't really move. And then we can also work on them. And then once we're done, we take their measurements and their weight, and we release them. Sometimes we're also keeping them for people who are doing studies, especially if they're taking blood sampling. They want us to keep the birds and get them calmed down, and they do get a lot calmer when they're in the cans and they can't see much, really. And you can see there's cans for red tails, much bigger. We do weigh them as well. We also take their wing cords, standard measurements for us, and we record all that good stuff, and then all that data gets imported to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who coordinates with the Canadian Wildlife Service. And we try to take down age. Some birds you can sex, some you can't. Red tails, for instance, it's impossible to sex the males and the females, but other species like sharpshins, because of the wing cord, you know it's a male or a female. And then we record the date, the time that it's released, and who the bander was. This is a sampling of all the band sizes. We have quite a number of sizes for different size birds. And you can see everything from a size 2, which would be the same thing we put on shrikes, would go on a male sharpshin, all the way up to a size 9, which is a pop rivet, we put on a golden or bald eagle. We do, of course, have a gauge for measuring. We generally can use that guide, but we do measure the legs to see what would fit. I have had some red tails that are so big that even a 7D band is a little bit of trouble. We've also had some red tails lately who are so small they take size 6 bands. So the size is all over the place. I won't say birds have got smaller, birds have got bigger. We have noticed more diversity in sizing than there maybe used to be. But we do have this, and ultimately the bander's judgment is final over what size band you put on what bird. And there are 3 kinds of bands we use. First is a butt band. All we do is open it, put it on the leg, and then close it, and it just comes together with a smooth edge. For the larger birds, we use something called a crimp band, which you have to have a set of pliers to pinch to close it, because those birds can pry it off. And for the eagles, we have to use pop rivets, because people discovered that the crimp bands, they could actually pry those off. So we now use pop rivet bands for golden eagles. There's even people who have made pliers, especially for banders. And you see there's a little pin on top of those pliers. That helps those butt bands be opened nicely. So it opens the width to put it on the leg, and then you pinch it with those things so that it's a perfect fit. It doesn't overlap, it comes right together. And that's how butt bands work. And here's a picture of Sheila with a crimp band. She's using a pair of pliers to finish putting the crimp on a red tail. So this is my friend David. This is up at our Station 7, and you can see there's a crimp band on the foot of that. It's an adult red tail. So obviously I talked about sharp shins. Here's a good example. The one on the left is immature with the yellow eye and the striping. The one on the right is an adult, has that chestnut colored striping on it. It also usually has orange or red eyes. They're quite small. And they're after the little warblers and all the neotropical migrants, so they're traveling now in bigger numbers. We catch juveniles first, usually females, then the males come, then the adults start to come in late September, early October. And these guys will go after anything. I've even had these little guys go after pigeons. They'll attack anything practically that moves. I've caught them when their crops are so full, they could not squeeze down another bite, and they attack the bird anyway. So their instinct is just to catch stuff, and that's what they do, and they're good at it. You can also see that the cere is yellow on the immatures, and you can see all the hairs they have for feeling around their face. This is a bad news story, though. You can see this bird is clearly, the numbers we are catching has just been almost a one-way trend down. The numbers we're catching about half of what it used to be in the last 10 years compared to 50 years. Harriers, this is an adult harrier. We don't catch many of these adult male harriers. They're beautiful birds. Gray ghosts, some people call them. We catch a lot more of these, though, the juveniles. This is a juvenile male. This is a juvenile female, much darker eye. Whoops, sorry. But you see how long their legs are. This is one of the reasons why we wait for that snowfall in December. These guys do not like the cold as much, and they have a lot more exposed legs. So when the ground gets covered, they tend to take off in huge numbers. I've seen hundreds of them in a single day in December, the day after that first snow. And you can see how long the legs are. They use those long legs to reach down in tall grass to catch stuff. So they love catching small birds, horned larks, meadowlarks, sparrows, but they love starlings too. Their favorite prey bird for us is starlings. That's a beautiful male with Gary Hubert. Their numbers isn't quite as bad. We are catching more of these. Now I have to admit, there's some learning here. We learned to wait till that big flight in December or November, whenever it is, and I think that's improved our numbers a little bit. We do catch quite a number of Cooper's hawks, especially the station I was at, the Bruce Duncan, Janet Snaith. I think their record, was around 400 in one season. We don't catch quite that many anymore. Now these are both adults, but you can see they look quite different. This guy's got pure red eye, this guy's got orange eyes. The other thing we do look for is there is a fungal ailment that affects their mouths. We are checking for that. Unfortunately, the accipiters seem to have quite a number of it. I think almost 10% of the birds we are catching have that disease. It's something that I think is worrying because they're worried that it's spreading and it's increasing. They don't quite know how they get it, but it does seem to affect the accipiters the worst. Young Cooper's hawks, look just like the young sharpshins. They're brown, yellow eyes, the striping. But the sizes aren't really that close. A lot of people think, oh, sharpshins and Cooper's hawks, they're almost, there could be overlap. There actually is no overlap. And you can see here's a female Cooper's hawk and a female sharpshin. They're not close at all in size. Same pattern, not quite as bad, but it's still a downward trend. Red tails, we catch quite a number of them, especially in October, November. Highly variable. You talk about a hawk that's got so many different plumages. Now these are young ones, so they don't have the red tails yet, but they all have those belly bands. But yellow eyes instead of the darker. And there's a young one along with an adult. There's Bruce Duncan with a young one and an adult, same kind of pose. And a good picture of Janet Snaith with a young one, a big one too. This is a bird that's still molting. You can see the tail feathers. They've still got one feather that hasn't come out that's not that brick red yet. They also are into everything. You can see this guy's bill, absolutely filthy. They will eat anything, dead stuff, live stuff. They're not too choosy. It's probably why red-tailed hawks are so successful. The other thing is these guys often come with smells. They've been sprayed by skunks. They've been into dead stuff. The smell sometimes takes getting a little bit of getting used to. Well, they will go after skunks, not as much as great horned owls, but I have had them sprayed. I'm going to show you some other pictures of other critters they've run into. Here's a young, that's an adult. There's a juvenile. You see the eyes, they're still that yellow color. The cere, though, is often quite light yellow on a juvenile red-tail. We do catch some of the western red-tailed hawks. They're much darker. There's the other side of him. That is a red-tail, believe it or not, a western red-tail. There's an even darker one. That also a very dark one, as is this one. This is a strange story. This guy, we caught him, and he had this stick driven right through him. And I thought, is this bird in trouble? We looked at under the feathers, and it had completely healed. We took it to a rehab place. They said that stick had been in there more than 2 years. So he dove down on something, he drove the stick right through himself, it didn't hit any vital organs, and then it healed up. So he had the stick sticking out of both sides of him, but the longest part was sticking out his back. The vet removed it, and that bird was released, believe it or not. But that is these birds are extremely tough. The reason I put this in here is to just show you how tough and resilient they are, even when they're injured. This is a partial albino bird that we caught, and you're going to see the tail is red, but the body was all white. We don't catch very many of these. Their numbers have gone down, but not as badly as the others. That shows that they're probably more resilient breeders. Kestrels, this is a female kestrel with the brown back. There's another picture of them. Male kestrels, in my opinion, the most beautiful raptor we have in North America. Unfortunately, these guys are in real trouble. And in fact, if there's one species that has really fallen off the map, it's these guys. I think the results of the last 5 years would show this to be far worse pattern. They probably are affected, like so many other grassland birds, by chemicals. A lot of people are interested in doing blood studies of these guys to find out what's in them. Unfortunately, neonics, a type of pesticide that farmers like to use because you can put it on seed and then it stays in the plant, they eat insects that have eaten the neonic stuff and it builds up in their tissues. So now that neonics are starting to be used a whole lot less, hopefully we might see some improvement. But any kind of grassland bird and bees, another example of a problem, kestrels unfortunately fall into that family. Now their cousins, the merlins, maybe not quite as badly affected. This is a nice male merlin. Here's a young one. And you can see their bills quite different than accipiters. They do kill by biting. They get a hold of, they have talons, believe me, but when they grab something, they don't kill with that. They kill by biting and severing the spinal cord of the bird. So they kill by biting, and they are super fast. These guys are so big, it's hard to get your hand around their tummies. They are solid muscle, these merlins, super fast flyers, and really bad tempers. They'll go after anything. I've had them go after things like vultures and golden eagles and not even think twice about it. So they have almost no fear or no brains, I'm not sure which, but they're so fast I don't think the eagles could catch them anyway. This is a young merlin, so they have that brown back, but again, see the black eye? And you can see the bill is different as well, heavy striping. Their numbers have gone down, but not nearly as bad, and we are catching a lot more of them, and they are now nesting all over southern Ontario. I think in the Atlas is going to prove they've really spread a lot further. Their favorite food, house sparrows. They love house sparrows, and if they find a house sparrow colony, they will sit there and wipe it out and then move on. So they love house sparrows, and I know Bill Reed has done studies of all the prey species they bring back to the nests. He collects all the feathers that fall down. I think he did a study of a nest in Cambridge, and I think house sparrow was #1 on that guy's menu too. We do catch some peregrines. This is a young peregrine. Here's Lawrence with another one. Here's a nice adult peregrine with Russ Chandler. and Jim Izawa. This is just too great an opportunity. It was a perfect plumage, that bird. And here's Rose with another adult. They too have that bill, that bluish bill, but again, use it for biting. Very long tails. This is a great photo taken in the 1980s. It's an immature and an adult peregrine together to show you how different they look, their facial patterns, but they both have the black tears on their face. And again, very powerful. This shows that they have not declined. This obviously shows what happens when we got rid of DDT. Over time, things improved. People who have done blood sampling work of these guys, though, they are still finding a fair amount of mercury and other things in them because they are a top predator. So they're not out of the woods, but they are doing better. They've really turned into an urban bird. You guys have celebrated, I think, a couple pairs here in Hamilton. But and we are still seeing some, but a lot of them are becoming non-migratory. That may be another change as well. We do catch goshawks some years, not every year. It's a nice adult. Another nice, I think they're if it's not the male kestrel, this thing would probably be the runner-up, is the most attractive, the most sharp-looking. But they're big. These guys are red-tail size. They're the one bird I'm a little scared of because when they come in, they're very rough on lure birds. They are expert at killing, and they also, like all the accipiters, they'll attack anything that moves. They also are one of the worst tempers of everything we catch. You have to be very careful with them. They're very, very quick, even for hawk standards. And they get angry, so we try to process them as quickly as we can and get them out. I think I was going to patent a goshawk alarm call, because if you had that blaring in your ear in the morning, you'd get up too. They just will not be quiet once they start. This is a nice adult, I think it's a female, that blood red eye, it's beautiful. This is a juvenile. They have that same kind of brown striping that the Coopers and the Sharpshins have, and we catch more of the juveniles. But this is a great picture. Their tail is almost as long as their body, so that they can steer. And again, they want to hunt in a headwind or a side wind. They do not want to hunt with a tailwind, and they use that long tail to help them steer themselves. And this just gives you, I think this is a goshawk and a sharpshin to show you just how much bigger they are. They're many, many times the size. That's a goshawk. It's a male goshawk and a adult female Cooper's hawk. They look to be almost the same size, but they're not. The wingspan, the goshawks are much bigger. This is the only photo we have with all three of the accipiters. There's a Sharpie on the left and a Cooper's in the middle and a goshawk on the right. And you can see they're really not even that close in size. We do catch a few roughlegs, especially in December if there's a lot of snow. They're really attractive birds. You can see they've got feathers all the way down their feet, which makes them much easier to take the winter. They, however, are not that interested in birds. They're mostly interested in mice, but they will, if you have sparrows, they will come after a sparrow. They will not come after pigeons. It's just too big for them. Here they are with another young, that's Rose with one. We do occasionally catch one. These are the dark-phased roughlegs. Catch a lot less of them. This is a young red-shouldered hawk. They too are not real bird fans, but some of them, especially the ones that winter, will turn to birds from things like snakes and frogs. They're pretty timid, actually. They don't often know what to do. That's my wife and Mark Peck's daughter with a young red shoulder. They're not nearly as big as a red tail. This is a good picture. It shows that window. You often hear about people saying it's a red shoulder because you see the window in the wings. That's that window they're talking about there on that bottom. And from a distance up in the sun, you can see that window. There's another picture of those windows in the wings. Yeah. We do catch some adults. They are very attractive birds. I didn't even see this guy coming. He came from behind me, which they don't normally do. But this one just came in all by itself. He's trying to look tough. He's got his head all puffed up. I'm about to release him. And they have, and the adults, you can see beautiful black and white banded tails, black and white primaries, secondaries. Beautiful bird. And you can see the red shoulders. They aren't called red-shouldered hawks for nothing. But there's no doubt that the raptor bander's favorite bird is this guy, a golden eagle. There's the first one. There's another one. There's another one with Bruce Duncan. You can see, again, that's a good photo. There's Russ's hands. The talons are almost as big as his hands. They're just massive. This one was in a fight with a porcupine. So we had to take some time to try to get the quills out of him, which wasn't that easy. They were worried it had also punctured the eye, but it didn't. He had them all around his mouth and all around one eye. So we got them out before we released them. Again, there's Sheila with one. You can see how big the talons are. They also have feathers going all the way down their feet, so they can take the cold. Here's John Lemon with another one. And Jim Izawa with another one, quite a bit darker this fellow was. And there's the can being used, that concrete forming, and you know, it's the only thing those birds will fit in. And here's Rose, the first one that she ever caught. Now this is a juvenile. You see the giant white wing patches underneath, the solid white wing patches underneath the wings. That's how you tell them. They have black and white tail. There it shows that white wing patch even better. And there's one being released, and you can see the feathers on the feet when it's going out. That's a good shot.
The other birds like on the trees as well.
I don't know if there's stuff behind her. That's sumac, I think. But here's our own Bill Reed with a golden eagle that he caught up at our station a few years ago. And we got pictures of them putting the band on and then using the pop rivet gun to close it, because these guys can pry the crimp bands right off. So the pop rivet holds it. And then that's Bill holding it. Bill's decent sized hands, and those talons are even bigger than that. So huge feet. And there it is being released. So we do catch some odd things as well. We do catch some occasionally, haven't caught many in many years now, but some juvenile bald eagles. We are seeing a lot of bald eagles. Their numbers are way up. But this is pictures of juveniles. There's another juvenile. There's a juvenile with Cyril caught way back when. There's Bruce Duncan, Bob Hubert with another one. That's at Station 7. I think this is the only adult bald eagle we've ever caught. Just again, it came in, but it was not well. It was transported to a rehab place. I think it got released though. We do occasionally catch great horned owls. They show up, they just see something and decide they're going to go after it, especially at the end of the day. This is Bill Rayner, who was a bander in the 70s. We do catch a few broadwings. This is a juvenile broadwinged hawk. They're quite small, actually. And I think of broadwings as a cross between a red tail and a Cooper's hawk. They kind of have attributes of both because they're about in the middle of size. That's Bob Hubert's dad, who caught the first broadwing at Hawk Cliff, and they decided that was worth of taking a photo. You can see how small it is compared to a red tail, much smaller. But highly variable. Their plumages are quite variable. This is another one, and then this is another one, but a whole lot less striping on it. Al Hurst caught that one. And there's showing the differences between red tail and a broadwing. This was the first Swainson's hawk, a young one that they caught at Hawk Cliff. I think the first thing people notice when they get them like that, look how the wings hang like accordions almost. The wings on a Swainson's hawk are extremely long compared to other bootios. And a lot of people, we don't catch these very often. They just had a juvenile or sub-adult Swainson's hawk go by Hawk Cliff this week. I don't think the banders even saw it, but this is the one I caught way back at 7. And again, we didn't know what it was when it first came in. We had to take a closer look at it. We counted the number of bands on the tail and went to the banding guide and said, yeah, it is a Swainson's hawk. And then we took it out of the can and the wings did that accordion thing, and I said, yeah, it's a Swainson's hawk. Because the wings, when I had it in my hand, the wings almost touched the ground. So they're very long-winged. They are not that keen on birds. They too are mostly eating mammals, and they even eat a lot of insects. But it did come in to have a look. There's another picture of it. The banding, the striping pattern on the tummy is nothing like a red tail either. This is a picture of a snowy owl decided to take a run at us. I don't know why. It must have been hungry. That's one of the few pictures we have of one. This was also a leucitic kestrel. The very, very odd color. It's the only one like this we've ever caught. There's that Kreider's red tail, a partial albino red tail. We also do catch these guys occasionally, especially in November, December, northern shrikes. They will only come to house sparrows. They won't come to a starling, and they have nothing to do with the pigeon. So, but they will come out. We catch quite a few of them. We used to catch quite a few of them up at Station 7. They also are terrible biters. Turn your fingers into, raw meat. So that's why you see somebody's holding them with a glove, because they are also terrible biters. This is a screech owl that was behind our hut. It sat there all day, and then suddenly I look and it's in the net. It had all day to size up the setup. It didn't move, and then it decided I better get something while the getting was good. That or it's got some mental problems. But anyway, we caught him, but we didn't ban him. We released him. We do, however, ban a few screech owls every now and then, especially when they get to us from the rehab places. We do work with the Blue Water Rehab in Sarnia and some other rehab places. When they have birds ready for release, we also do the banding. There's a red-phased screech owl as well that Rob Butler got. We do catch other things by accident. I regretted trying to take this thing out of the net. It's a pileated woodpecker. He didn't really like being caught too much, but we let him go. This is the rarest thing that I think has ever been seen at Hawk Cliff. Does anybody know what that is? It's a type of kingbird. Which one? It's the gray kingbird. And it got caught in the mist nets just totally by accident. And I believe it's one of only a handful. I believe they caught one at Long Point after this one. But, and I didn't see this bird. I was very disappointed. I wasn't there that day. But Don Fowler caught it right at the lake bank, and they took those photos and let it go. But that's the rarest thing I think we've ever had at Hawk Cliff. We do occasionally catch these guys. I'm always a bit nervous about getting them out of the nets because they do bite. They do carry a number of diseases. I would usually wear gloves if I do this. This is a red bat. This guy was really nice. He didn't do anything to me. But other people have told stories they can bite. But getting them out of these nets is a little bit tricky. So, what's the value of hawk banding? Well, I think first and foremost, there's a huge public education program that the Hawk Cliff guys have done with the St. Thomas Field Naturalists and the Hawk Cliff Foundation. We take birds to the road, we show people these birds up close. Most hawks, people don't see up close. They're skittish, they hide, you see them flying and that's it. So I think the public education angle, we've been thousands, maybe tens of thousands of folks have been at the Hawk Cliff Road in late September, early October over the years, and we sponsored that. And there's a nice picture of Bruce Duncan showing a red tail. And there's Mr. Fowler and Mr. Crocker. Large groups, and now the Thames Talbot Land Trust has bought property at Hawk Cliff, making it more accessible, but also allowing us to have tents and things like that and more things to see. So they've really done a great service educating people. And here's Cyril having somebody release a sharp shin.
Is there any information on these bands, like put these bands on to when they go somewhere else?
Oh yeah, we get returns. I'll talk about that in a minute. That's a good point. We've also, I said, hosted dozens of researchers and grad students from all over the world, in fact, doing blood sampling, tissue samples, feather samples. I talked to you already about the parasite sampling. They also want sometimes very specialized body measurements that they need to get access to birds, and this helps. Hawk Cliff Raptor banders have been quoted in a number of scientific articles as well. And now, with the help of, I think, Catherine Manshot, who's here, and our friends at Long Point Bird Observatory, we're putting MODIS tags on birds as well, sharp shins and kestrels, to see where they go. We do get returns. So for 2007, there were 38 returns out of those 2,000 something birds banded. So the recovery percentages for the small birds is less than 1%. For red tails, it gets a lot higher. It's 2 to 5%. It also has, there's one record I think they're pretty proud of. There is a harrier record. Bob Hubert banded a bird. It was 33 years old and 2 months. It is the 8th oldest bird found in North America, banded Hawk Cliff. And that bird survived that. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to be released. It stayed as an education bird for another year or two after it was caught. We do retrap also birds from other stations. So we do, I think, actually Catherine was telling me you guys just retrapped something from Braddock Bay that had a Modus tag on it. We catch stuff from Holiday Beach, we catch stuff that's been banded at Long Point, we catch stuff that's been banded down as far as Cape May and Hawk Mountain. So it's 50 years of doing this at the same place. That alone is valuable. It's an important spot to monitor raptor migration, but also collect data. And an efficient place to collect data, actually, compared to many other choices. It's big, important role in educating the public about the value, beauty, and importance of raptors, and other things too. And, you know, I think we still are, because of the number we catch, we still are one of those top 3 or 4 or 5 stations in North America. Sometimes, though, it's just about you're in the right place at the right time. This is the first golden eagle I ever banded back in 2008. And you can see why they're called golden eagles. It's that's plumage on the back of their heads. And that's my hand along with those talons. And you can see the pop rivet band, but huge. This was a male. The females get even bigger. And then you see that nice black and white tail. And the big white patch under the wings. This was, I think, a second-year male golden eagle, and there it's being released. So if you're interested, Hawk Cliff weekends are actually next weekend at Hawk Cliff. The Raptor Banding Association, we do allow visitors. If you're interested, you can arrange in advance, and we are an active participant with the Ontario Bird Banding Association. And so along with my friend here, I want to say thank you. How'd they do for time? Questions? Any questions?
I have a sheet about like.
Wow, maybe I should talk to you afterwards. I don't know. Why don't you start with one? Let's see what one question. See how it goes.
Oh yeah, one question. Yes, that was it. Yeah. Yes. So like, yeah. The number like of birds basically you caught basically are there's like some that are like rare species.
Well, we just don't encounter them as often. They don't come by our neck of the woods, or they're not interested in birds. We use bird lures. If they don't eat birds, they just fly right over us.
Oh yeah.
Like turkey vultures fly over us too. I don't really want to catch them anyway, but they're not interested either. But broadwings and red shoulders are not as interested in birds. But things like sharpshins and red tails are very interested, and that's what we focus on. Other questions?
We can take a few more questions. I have a mic here. I don't know if it's working. Oh, it's working. Okay. 2 minutes? Oh, yeah.
Way over there.
So you mentioned that merlins are particularly fond of house sparrows.
They are.
Is there a way to encourage them nesting near where you have
I don't know, but I feed birds throughout the year, and I had a colony of house sparrows, and a pair of merlins nested behind my house there. I live in Oakville and Bronte Creek. Within a couple months, they had completely decimated the colony. And I'll tell you why. They hunt by hearing. They hear the house sparrows chattering, and they just hound them until they catch them.
Same things happen in my neighborhood, actually.
So I don't know, if you want to encourage them, you got to feed house sparrows. I'm not sure that's everybody's cup of tea.
Any other questions?
When you catch, it's just a quick question. When you catch something special like a golden eagle, I'm just interested if you get on the phone and to the other huts and if you all get together and.
We have radios. We talk on the walkie-talkie radios. So we do communicate. The problem is the bands for those, we don't keep every hut. We have one central place for those bands because you need the pop rivet gun. So people do come, usually, not every time, but a lot of people come to see them. And we do, if we catch something really special and we know there's hawk watchers, we sometimes also take it over to the road and show them as well, if it's that rare. But I think usually we're catching 1 or 2 golden eagles a year if we're lucky. Last year I had 40 or 50 go over me, and we had 2 come in. Didn't catch any. The worst story I have with them is, I had two of them come in, and they're often siblings from a nest. They will travel together. And I thought they went over. And then my roof is made of tin. And suddenly I hear click, 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 click. Is there a squirrel on the roof? So I stuck my head out, and both of them were sitting on the roof, watching the pigeon, watching the starling, had no interest in going near it, and the minute they saw my head, they both just took off, and it was like it was like a whooshing sound as they pushed, they just jumped up and took off. So they're very smart, and when they're together, they're even more timid. Golden eagles are not tough. Golden eagles are actually pretty cowardly, truthfully. And they often say, pigeon on a string doesn't look right. They'll circle and circle and circle, but won't come in. So they'll play with you, but you got to get a bird separate, and you can't have anything else. If a red tail shows up, they'll give up the pigeon for the red tail. So they're not like the bullies of the woodlot. The most aggressive thing are goshawks. Goshawks will attack anything that's on a kill. They'll go after it too. They're much more aggressive. But the golden eagles are actually pretty much cowards. Yeah. Yeah.
George, you mentioned land trust, who bought some land.
Yeah, the Thames Talbot Land Trust. Yeah.
Thames Talbot?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
There you go. Yeah, they bought, now I think they've bought 100 acres on the other side of Hawk Cliff Road. And they've put trails in. It's turned into a great bird watching place, not just for hawks, but for spring and fall migrants as well. So if you go to Hawk Cliff and there's no hawks flying, you can go look at all the migrants. A lot of warblers, vireos right now are all along that road. But that is now going to be public access, and trails are in all that property.
Is that on the east or west side?
It's actually on the west side of the road. The Hawk Watch, they built a platform right along the road.
Yeah.
But that property we look into is owned by a guy named Steve Ivan, who's kind enough to let the Hawk Watchers put their chairs and stuff in front of the trees so they can look out in the field. And then they're looking out right to where all our hawk stations are.
Yes.
So the Hawk Watchers sometimes see hawks diving down on things at the banding stations. They too have radios and they listen sometimes to our chatter. If they see a golden eagle go down there, some of them get pretty excited too. Yeah?
Just a quick question. So you have a lure, which is like a bird of some type. And it's in that band nest, that band net. Is that how it works? And
well, we build jackets for them usually made of leather. So it's like a holder, and that attaches to like a swivel you use for fishing. And that's connected to a circuit of cord. We use decoy cord. And that allows us to move the bird in and out so that we can get them into the bow traps. We have them out flapping, and then we see something coming, we pull them into the bow trap, and then hopefully the hawk gets into the bow trap before they can grab the lure bird. That's how it's supposed to work. But there's a lot of what could go wrongs to this whole operation. Including you don't see stuff coming. Some stations can see everything, like where I am, you saw that picture, it's so open, I can see almost everything in front of us coming. But if birds come from behind, I can't see them. That doesn't happen very much, but in fact, the entire flow of birds at Hawk Cliff, they're coming in front of us, so they're coming from the east, they pass over us, and if they don't come in, they just keep right on trucking down Lake Erie. They're almost all going in one direction.
Do they fly over Lake Erie or along?
Along it. They do not want to, most of them do not want to go over bodies of water because there's no thermals to ride. So they wait till they find a thermal of air, they ride it like an escalator, they get up high, and then they coast as far as they can, and then they got to find another thermal. They don't flap the whole way. If they did, they wouldn't probably have enough energy to make it anyway. So that keeps the birds on the land, which is why, again, if we get north winds, they get pushed to Lake Erie, and they don't want to go in the water, and we get greater numbers at Hawk Cliff than we do pretty much anywhere inland. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Oh, there's another one up here.
It's not a question, but it's an advertisement. Lori and I and our children have been greatly influenced by the hawk watching opportunities in Ontario.
at Hot Cliff. Started there about 40 years ago, and at Beamer. So living in Hamilton is a wonderful place because in the fall you get the hawk watch either right at the high level bridge in Hamilton or down at Hot Cliff, and in the spring we get it again, and I think it's the only hawk watch in Ontario in the spring.
That's
it's
true.
right at Beamer Memorial Conservation Area in Grimsby. And the same principles of why the hawks are there, their numbers and everything, they're all recorded because the hawk watch now at Beamer is over 50 years. So they're sort of two parallel evolution hawk watches.
Well, and Bruce Duncan, I think, had a lot to do with getting that going.
Oh, he did.
And, you know, he went there in the spring and then he had a different place to go in the fall. So, I to this day, I still miss working with him.
We all do. Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll wrap up here, and thank you, George.
Thank you.
Wonderful presentation.
As always, if you have any further questions after you come up, like we
Sure.
talked to George after, or myself, if you have any other questions about anything I presented on. But other than that, I wish you all a good night. Next week, or next month, we'll be back here with author Steve Burrows for the birthday group and the annual general meeting for the club as well too. Those can all be found on hamiltonnature.org. And thank you again, George.
Thank you.
Have a good night.